Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger along. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger along. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario's south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to start out a little differently today, and I'm going to ask you all to please rise. It is with a great sense of loss and sadness that we begin this afternoon's proceedings. This past week saw the passing of Councillor Oliver's wife, Annie. She was a wonderful lady and will be missed by all who knew her. On behalf of this council, all of the county staff, and indeed all the people of Norfolk County, we pass on our condolences to Jim and his family. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. If you could just remain standing for a brief moment, please. Thank you. You may be seated. Okay, welcome to Council and Committee for February 20th, 2018. Of course, Councillor Oliver will not be with us tonight due to personal matters. I would like to remind everyone that our meetings are web streamed and televised. For those in attendance, I would ask you to ensure that your phones are in silence mode. I would like to thank our camera volunteer, Bill Jackson. Are there any disclosures of a pecuniary interest to declare? Seeing none, that's recognized. Approval of the agenda. There are no changes to today's agenda. Can I have a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda as presented? Wells and Black, all in favor? Carried. Okay, that takes us right into deputations. As a reminder to all presenters, there is a strict 10-minute time limit, and I will tell you when you have 1 minute left. So, first up, we have Amy Ferris, the Kinsman Club of Port Dover, regarding Friday the 13th, 2018. Welcome, Amy.
Good afternoon, everyone, and on behalf of the Port Dover Kinsman Club, we would like to send our condolences to Councillor Oliver as well. I'm here today as a volunteer with the Port Dover Kinsman Club for Friday the 13th to address 3 issues that we have with you. First being the fees that are now charged to us that have not been charged in the past, fees for the county property use during the events, and a community festival report that was due to you back in October of 2017. So first, let's review some history. The Port Dover Kinsman Club was the first organization to jump on board to assist the original Friday the 13th organizer, Chris Simons. This was a long time ago, somewhere in the late 80s, early 90s. We've lost track. Since then, the club has taken on many responsibilities and, of course, costs. As you know, the PD13 committee, which managed most of the events, or managed some events a few years ago, folded. Upon dissolving of this committee, the Port Dover Kinsman Club and the Port Dover Board of Trade agreed to take on the responsibilities and the costs associated with the event. However, that agreement between the county and our organization was never fully put in writing. That's why I'm here today. To my first point, back when PD13 committee folded, the county approached the Port Dover Kinsman Club, who agreed to come on board. Part of that agreement included that we would not be charged vendor fees to sell our merchandise throughout town in exchange for paying for county overtime expenses and other expenses throughout the event. Since that day and up until the April event, we have not paid vendor fees for our multiple locations throughout town. Last October, we were informed that we would have to pay peddler permits, and they were no longer free. After discussion with Councillor Wells and Mayor Luke and Mr. Grizel, we were given a one-time exemption in 2017. We received a letter 2 weeks ago informing us that the clerk can no longer give us another exemption, and therefore we must be charged these vendor permit fees. I'm here today to ask Council to put our handshake agreement in writing to permanently exempt the Port Dover Kinsman Club and the Port Dover Board of Trade from any vendor fees for the sale of their own merchandise, so long as they remain an event organizer. An event organizer to us would be described as one who organizes the major aspects of the day, including vendors, parking, busing, etc., and contributes to the cost to run the event, the fees that I mentioned earlier that come from the county. Not only has this fee never been charged to us, but let's think of it this way. Norfolk County is charging us to raise the funds that we need to pay your expenses. The agreement always was that we would pay no fees for selling our merchandise because that was the money that we needed to offset the county expenses. That's the first of my requests today. Secondly, in order to raise the funds we need to not only pay the county, but to donate to our local charitable organizations and not-for-profit groups who volunteer their time to run these events, we require the use of some county property. For example, Powell Park, Elmer Lewis Parkette, Kinsman Park, the former Doverwood Public School, Harbor Street, Chapman Street, just to name a few. We are asking Council to permanently waive all fees for the use of county property for the Friday the 13th event organizers. Again, a fee to the organizers for this use of the county property takes away from the profits we need to pay county expenses, event expenses, and donate to our volunteer groups. My last item is a simple comment. I was here twice last year to discuss making Friday the 13th a community festival. Similar to the likes of Art in the Park in Port Dover, Pumpkin Fest in Waterford, or the Lynn River Music Festival in Simcoe. At my last appearance, Council instructed staff to consult with the event organizers, create a report, and report back to Council by October 2017. Well, we are now nearly March 2018, and we have yet to see a report. We've been consulted once for maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, And we were told in October that the report would come in December. We were then told in December the report would come in January. Then in January, we were told the report would come in March, and that it would take effect for the July 2018 event. We are asking Council to hold your staff responsible for this report. We cannot even begin the majority of our planning for July, which is likely going to be the biggest event we have ever seen, because we don't know what our role is, what our costs are going to be, or what vendor fees may look like. That can't go on. Currently, we are not a community festival, but we are certainly carry the burden of one. We are responsible for the washrooms throughout town, which would be a cost of the county since we're not a community festival. We're required to pay for extra lighting in the park, security for vendors. We also pay for extra garbages brought through town and county overtime fees. All of these items and more would be the expense of county if the Port Dover Kinsman Club and the Port Dover Board of Trade didn't agree to stand behind their side of the handshake. So although we're being financially treated like a community festival, we are not reaping the benefits of a community festival. Our vendor numbers are dropping yearly because of the astronomical fee that the county charges to vendors coming here, a fee that they do not charge to any other vendor at any other community festival throughout Norfolk. Such loss is resulting in a loss of profit to our organization and in turn, less money to give back to our community organizations or to capital projects throughout Port Dover. I just want to highlight a few of the capital projects that we have been part of because of Friday the 13th. $20,000 to the Silver Lake, or the Port Dover Skate Park, $20,000 to the Elmer Lewis Parkette, plus the cost of the installation of a hydro service, $10,000 to the Harbor Museum Parkette, $3,000 to the Harold Schneider Parkette, $255,000 to the pavilion at the Kinsman Park. They've also recently contributed to the cost of the fencing at the Kinsman Park and now the former Doverwood Public School property. The club has also donated over $300,000 to local charitable organizations and not-for-profit groups who volunteer their times to help these events run smoothly. As you can see, the Kinsman Club has held up their end of the handshake since day one. We continue to pay expenses associated with the community festival, although it's not really our responsibility. We are now asking the county to waive peddler fees for organizers selling our own merchandise and to waive fees associated with the use of community property by organizers. And lastly, we urge you to hold your staff accountable and get this community festival report completed. It's nearly 5 months overdue, and we are less than 5 months away from what is most likely going to be the biggest event we've ever had. Thank you for your time. We appreciate the partnership that we've had with Norfolk County and look forward to improving this business relationship further.
Thank you, Amy. Councillor Wells, you're up first.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Chair,
You don't have to stand.
okay, I'll sit back down then.
You make me feel short when you stand.
I like standing. That's where my
Go ahead.
brain works better when I stand.
All right.
But I will sit. First of all, thank you very much for being here. Certainly
Thank you, John.
appreciate you being here. And if I understand it correctly, I think I've written down 3 things that the money that you raise is used to offset Norfolk County costs. Am I correct on that?
Correct.
And those costs being?
So the costs that we have are we recently received the bill for last year, so we pay for county overtime staff and additional garbages throughout town. Then we also bring in all the washrooms that are in town. So along with the Board of Trade, we split the costs of washrooms, dumpsters for the vendor location areas, and then obviously the volunteers who run this event. I don't like to say that we pay them because we don't. We donate to their organizations. They're not paid as individual people, but we have to give something to those people who are running things like the parking lots and camping and whatnot.
Do you have any idea how much money you have donated to Norfolk County?
Yep.
Could we hear that, please?
So since, just for Norfolk County expenses since 2007, or so 5 events, we're looking at, I got to do quick math here, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, about 16 or 17,000 in the last 4 events. And it varies every event based on the size of the event and how much overtime staff is required.
Right. And if I understand you correctly, part of this problem could be solved if we meeting Norfolk County Council, agreed to deem this a community festival.
Well, we're already actually kind of being treated as a community festival because we're paying these expenses. Technically, it's not our job. It's a county event because it's not a community festival, so it could be the expense of the county to take care of that, but it's something that we agreed to long ago, and we've stuck to that.
And if I understand, one other question, if I understand your report again, or your deputation, you were somewhat disappointed in the fact that this community meeting that you were to have with staff has not taken place. Am I correct on that?
So there was an initial meeting out of the gate. It was approximately half hour, 45 minutes. I have kept in contact with staff, probably more than they like, hounding them for more information. But our issue is that we are now receiving requests for July, and we can't do anything. So we are in a standstill for July, which is going to take the largest amount of planning. So I'm actually more disappointed in the fact that the report has not come forward yet, which was supposed to come in October 2017.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much again for being here. I'm sure we will solve
I know you will.
these problems.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, you may be seated, and I need someone to move and second that we receive this deputation. Luke and Wells have so moved. All those in favor? Thank you. Comments, please. Wells?
And, Mr. Chair, now that we have heard the deputation, now that we've approved this, and you heard that they are basically waiting for this report, could we have any idea from community staff when we might be, or when they might be receiving this report? Please.
Through the Chair to Councillor Wells. Yes, I have kept Council up to date with memos. The report has been delayed. It's multi-departmental, and it's not an easy one to put together. And as of February 28th, we're having a final meeting with Shelley Darlington in the Clerk's Division, and we'll have all our answers together, and the report will be forthcoming very quickly. It was my understanding that the report, and I have talked to Ms. Fair, she has contacted me quite a bit, and I thought I did an effective job communicating back that we needed more time to pull this together. The report should be here in April. That'll give us the month of March to put it together, and I believe we only have the 2 meetings in March, so we will have the report in April.
Well, thank you very much for that. Mr. Chair, if I could ask Mr. Cridlin, if such a thing happens, and I know that you can get busy like everybody else, and I'm not criticizing that, but could we give the committee assurances that if this report isn't here and if it is not solved, that it will be a status report, it will be a status as is until the following year? Would that be a fair comment?
Through the Chair, that's a fair comment, but
Okay. Oh, thank you very much, if I understand that correctly. So if it doesn't get there, it'll be the same as it always has been. Am I correct on that?
through the Chair, that's our understanding.
Thank you very much. That makes me happy.
Thank you. Councillor Black?
Basically the same. I wanted to know when the report's coming, and if it's not till April, I don't know if that does give the committee enough time, but Bill has answered that, Councillor Wells' question, that it would be status quo, so, but certainly, you know, these events are quite confusing to me, that they seem to, well, I guess every municipality prior to amalgamation did something differently, and just over the years we've been trying to pull them together and treat them all in a similar fashion, in a fair way, so, but it gets confusing when you have so many different groups doing so many different things, so I really look forward to receiving the report. Hopefully it'll absolve me of that confused state of mind.
Anyone else? Wells again?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I think I'd like to put forth a motion, just so we have this on the record. And the motion would be that if things in this report doesn't get here and things don't change, that the status quo will be the same as it was in the past for this upcoming event. And then the report will be there, and we can deal with it when it gets here, if it's not here in time. Because they have to plan like everybody else. And they have to let their vendors know what's going to happen. And they shouldn't be responsible to take on great debt without knowing what consequences they are taking on. And I'd ask Mr. Cridlin, he can wordsmith it any way he wants. He understands exactly what I want.
Yeah. We have some consultation going on here.
Okay. I don't see what the problem is, Mr. Chair. It's exactly the same as been happening since the last 10 or 12 years. And that's how we functioned for the last 10 or 12 years. I'm not asking for us to create a new event here.
Mr. CAO?
I just think there's you've been very clear in what you'd like to see from staff, and staff have indicated that a report will be forthcoming in April, and I'm sure it'll be the earlier of the 2 April meetings, not the later two. That's the entire month of March on something we've already been granted additional time on. Surely that's enough time for us to put a fulsome report before you. That being said, the problem with your motion is that it involves a condition precedent. So your motion only takes effect if something else doesn't happen. We will put a document in front of you. You will be given some information at that time. It's very much open to this council to pass any number of motions, including the substance of what you just said, sir. But it's really awkward to pass a motion now that says if something else doesn't happen in the negative, then something in the positive will happen, which is to say we're going to go on the status quo. What I can tell you is your staff have heard, you've been abundantly clear. You will have a chance in the first week of April, or second, committee council, so first and second weeks of April, to receive reports from us and to do something including pass the substance of the motion you just said. I would suggest to you, though, that what you're trying to do at the moment is very problematic from a procedural perspective.
Another question, John?
What would it be if we forget adding anything to it other than to simply say that at this time we intend to do the same, the status quo as we have in the past, without anything else? All I want them to go leaving here with the assurance that they have assurance that we are going to do this. What's wrong with that?
Were you to put forward a motion now saying it's to be the status quo, i.e. no one is to pay these fees, then in April, when we put a report in front of you, you're prisoner to your own reconsideration rules. You'll have an opportunity to do this in April. We've heard you. You've been very clear. There's no gray area here. You are to receive a report in April that fulsomely addresses all of the issues so that you can make an informed decision, whatever that may be, and we will comply.
Mr. County Manager, I'll say this to you. If you're that assured, I'm equally assured that you will get it done, and I'll wait for that famous report.
Okay.
Thank you.
The report it is. Mayor Luke, please.
We don't have a motion, so I don't think I'm in order to speak on it, but let's not have an organization back here in May saying, where's the report? Let's not go through this again. Otherwise, let's get this motion on the floor so they can proceed and know what they're doing for July 1st. If the report doesn't come till August, it doesn't bother me then.
Yeah. Anyone else? Okay, as it is, we're going to wait for the report and hope it's the right one. Thank you. Going on then. Next speaker, Adam Veery from Port Dover Board of Trade regarding municipal parking opportunity for Port Dover. Mr. Veery, please.
Thank you. I'm following up, I guess, on the letter that I sent last week, February 8th, so 2 weeks ago, about an opportunity to add some parking that's much needed in downtown Port Dover. We've been to council before, we've talked to staff before about the need for parking. There was, I guess, a resolution last year to ask for a parking and traffic study. That was in the budget, now it's out of the budget. And the Board of Trade is totally fine with not having a study because we would just like the parking. There's a lot that's vacant on the corner of Chapman and Main Street. We would like Norfolk County to enter into a partnership with the Port Dover Board of Trade to purchase that lot to make a parking lot. That's really it. I don't have much of a presentation apart from just that request. I did include a letter. All the details sort of about what we know about it is in there. We can go into it or we can just cut to the chase, whatever is more convenient. I don't know how to really do that.
Okay. Councillor Wells?
And, Mr. Chair, Mr. Veery, what makes you believe that there is a need for parking, more parking in Port Dover?
Well, okay, that's a great question. So the need comes from constant feedback from the businesses, constant feedback from tourists, and then also, just because I have eyes, that you can see people and you can see them circling. There's people that are walking. There are people that we are hearing from businesses that they get complaints later that people couldn't find parking near their business, so they went somewhere else or they left. That does happen, especially with older people. Over the last decade or so, we've had a net loss of approximately 60 parking spaces just due to different things. The stoplights going in on Main and Market, the new turning lane, just things that have changed in the downtown, and there's been a considerable loss of parking. And in that same time, Port Dover's become more of a year-round destination. So even, it's not just a matter of it being busy in the summer anymore. We are finding people that it's busy in the winter, and people need a place to park. And what we don't want, with all the new houses that are being built, with all the people that are making an effort to shop in our downtown and to attend theater performances, go to restaurants and what have you, we don't want that to become a problem where people can't find parking and stop coming before we do something about it. So it's not too often, I don't think, that a relatively affordable slam dunk sort of opportunity comes our way, and I think this is kind of a once in, maybe not in a lifetime, but certainly an uncommon opportunity to address this need.
Continuing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And thank you for that explanation. Now, I have heard, as you have on many occasions, where people want more parking by the beach down in that area. By having a parking lot uptown, will that help to alleviate some of the parking problems?
We have people that are willing to walk to the beach from further away than that now. I think it's about service, right? I mean, that's what we're trying to look at, is do you want to walk your kids 6 blocks or 2 blocks? And I think that's the difference. And people with young families, people with seniors, I think that this lot will help the downtown, and I think it will help the business community, and I think it will help certainly the beach. But this is not going to be on any map or any really study, but it's sort of like you have to be downtown to know it. But, right now, that Chapman Street intersection, it almost creates a boundary where a lot of people don't go beyond, and I don't know why that is. And we feel like the parking lot there will help us build business up to that next block, and we're certainly looking to move that direction. Certainly the Dairy Queen will help. The Ramonda shop, for those that don't know, that the shop on the corner of, or near the corner of Nelson and Main has been sold. Like, we want businesses to fill that block up, and we think that having parking that's close by to those businesses will encourage people to open there. So there's an opportunity really to grow our downtown core another whole block in a really productive way, and I think that that's another opportunity with this. So yes, the beach is part of it, but we're also looking toward other business the other way. Yeah.
Councillor Black, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Adam. I see the parking needs in Dover split 3 ways. There's, as Councillor Wells indicated, there's business needs, there's beach needs, and there's event needs. There's 3 different needs there, but nonetheless, I do agree that there is a need. I just wondered, you've indicated here that that lot is big enough to accommodate between 20 and 30 cars. Do you know the actual dimensions of that vacant lot?
Yeah, I'm not sure which way is which. It's about 100 by 100. I think it's like 101 by like 99 or 98. It's close to 100 by 100.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And so the way I came up with that, I know you didn't ask, but I'll tell you, is I did get what a parking space has to be, and then I dropped it in, like I did on a design thing and just dropped it in. So depending on how everything was situated, that's why I can't say it's for sure 27, because I don't know the building of it, but there's enough room in there with lanes in between to do some up the middle and then some on the sides and at the back, and to get between 20 and 30 in there based on those sizes. Okay, yeah.
Okay. Councillor Columbus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Adam, your report here says it's a contaminated site, and for $299,000.
Yep.
And there was a conditional offer, but do you think that property is worth $299,000 worth of taxpayers' money?
I mean, relatively speaking, yes, I do. I think that that investment will, I look at it as an investment that will provide ongoing returns to the business community, and as Councillor Black mentioned, certainly the festivals, but I'm talking about just day-to-day business and being able to encourage people to say, yeah, you can come down and you can park and you can get to places. So if you're looking at it in terms of, is it worth the investment to have more businesses up and fill up that block? Absolutely. Is it worth it to have more people come during the summertime because they can get close to the beach? Absolutely. Is it worth it to have more people come into the festivals and events that are put on by not-for-profits that do cover off some of the expenses in town, that if we didn't do that fundraising, we'd be coming to council to ask to pay for those expenses anyway? Yeah, I think it does. I think that it saves money in the long term by keeping those things vibrant and keeping those things investing. Like most of our festivals and events are funded by the people, the neighbors, the businesses that chip in. And so give them more, we'll get more, and then we'll be able to save more on other improvements, right?
Well, if it's contaminated, I would hope that it would be a lot less value than $299,000.
I think if it didn't have those issues, it would have been sold long ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Mayor Luke.
Well, I'm going to ask this question eventually to staff, Mr. Chair, but, and by the way, through the chair, thank you, Adam, for being here and presenting this. You state in your letter that cleanup is not required for paving a parking lot. What do you justify that statement on? I mean, I think that's a true statement, but...
Your planning department.
Planning department? Okay.
Yeah, I talked to Pam Dusling about it. I didn't talk to her. I emailed her back and forth and said, can we do this? And she confirmed that, in fact, you don't need to do that for a parking lot.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Adam.
Okay.
Councillor Black.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and again to Adam. Did I see anywhere in here where an appraisal has been done on it, or what the market value assessment is for taxation?
I do not know that.
No, don't have either. Okay.
Anyone else? Councillor Brunton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just, Adam, did you say there has not been an environmental assessment done?
No, there has been.
There has been?
Yes, sir.
And what was the result?
I don't mean to give you a flippant answer because I don't know the right answer. There needs to be cleanup done before they can build it on it, is the outcome.
So they don't know if there's been any migration off-site on that?
I don't know that.
Okay. Well, I think that would be very important for us. We're cleaning up a $4 million hole in the north part of Simcoe here right now. Their fuel has migrated off the site. So I think it's something I'd like to know anyways.
Yeah, so I think that at the point where if you decided to proceed and staff were to do a report on that information would be available. I've seen the report. I just don't have that actual report in front of me right now.
Okay.
I've read them, like they exist, they are done for sure. And the confirmation is that as far as we know, that the seller intends to pass on any cleanup costs to the buyer. So that's part of why it's sitting. So it's there, for sure. The assessment is there and it's done.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Anyone else? Mayor Luke.
I would move that we receive this deputation as information, Mr. Chair.
You may be seated. We need a seconder. Wells. All those in favor? Any further action or comments? Councillor Black.
And Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Certainly, I have no problem directing staff to look into the situation so we can be better informed. There's some information outstanding that I would like to know, market value assessment at the very least. Certainly an appraisal maybe later would be nice. I wouldn't mind knowing, what the extent of the contamination is. There's always costs associated with that, and anything else that staff might deem important and necessary for the councillors to know. So I wondered if we could ask staff to come with a report. I don't know if that's Chris or, well, just staff, and then county CAO can dole it out. Is that all right?
You've been given direction for a report. Who wants to?
Through the chairman, I would say it's typically done through corporate support services for that type of work. So I was looking across the room to Yakov's group to do that.
Direction? You want to make that just direction or a motion?
Well, I
or-
don't know, what do you require? I mean, I'd glad to make it a motion if that's okay.
If Councillor Black puts that in the motion, I will second it.
Okay, we have a mover and a seconder, that a report be brought back giving detailed about the lot in question in Port Dover. Mayor Luke.
Speaking to the motion, Mr. Chair, I certainly support this. I think not often an opportunity comes along on a main street, downtown Port Dover, and I'd like to see staff investigate this. Councillor Brunton has raised some concerns about spreading of the contamination. We need to know that. We need to know what the property's worth. We certainly know what they're asking. And, we have this county purchased property in Port Dover before. We know you got to get your checkbook out. It's not cheap. But we have an opportunity here maybe to pick up 30 spaces, much needed, in a growing community in Norfolk County. So I think we at least have to take the first step and have a look.
Yep.
And there is a little bit of money in parking reserves, not much, but there is a little bit there, and that all can be brought forward in the staff report. Thank you.
Anyone else speaking to the motion? Councillor Brunton?
Just one other thing, I think, I've heard 20 and 30 spaces, but I think it wouldn't be very hard if we know the lot size to draw up a little sketch and just see what we really can get on the property according to our current parking restrictions and bylaws, just to see if there is adequate, there comes a point when you have to look at the cost per space for parking. At least in my mind, you should anyways. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? You've heard the motion. All those in favor? That is carried. Councillor Black, turn your mic off, please.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Next deputation, Mr. Leonard Patterson, regarding tenant water bill arrears. Mr. Patterson, I must inform you that we're walking into a gray area here as to what you're allowed to present and what you're not to, since this has been presented before. And I'm going to ask the deputy clerk to inform you exactly what you're allowed to speak to.
Through the chair, it was brought to my attention, as unfortunately I wasn't in this position last year, but in doing some research, looking at tenant arrears, the issue is brought before committee and then subsequently by council and to council back in February. So if the deputation is to speak to specifically on tenant arrears, that is basically fair game. If it's something then subsequently that was followed in May, which was a report to staff on, or sorry, to council on the process of handling such arrears, that is something that would require reconsideration, as it hasn't been the 12-month.
That wasn't what I was informed when I requested that before.
I'm sorry, but I can't hear you.
I was led to believe that I could speak openly on this issue, that the 12 months had passed.
Again, unfortunately, I can't speak specifically to what you were advised, but in consultation with the clerk and the CAO and the treasurer, the information that we have before us is that, yes, of course, you can speak to your deputation, but if council or, committee had the desire to look at something that was specific to the information discussed in the May 16th report, that would require reconsideration. If it's something more specific to the tenant arrears and the process for handling such, that could be discussed because it has passed the reconsideration timeline.
I'll give it a go.
How about you just make a presentation?
I'll make the presentation
we receive,
and you...
we receive it as information, but are probably not going to act on it.
Great.
Okay?
Good. To the chair. The topic of this presentation is the management of tenant water and wastewater account arrears on our pipe-based water and wastewater system. Please note that landlords attached to the system who include water and sewage in their rent, and landlords providing water and sewage via cisterns, wells, holding tanks, sleepage beds are not part of this issue. At issue is landlord property owners who opt to have their tenants pay the municipal water and sewage account for a rental property. If these tenant accounts go delinquent, this subsegment of landlord property owners are not held responsible for the unpaid account because of administrative technicalities. By comparison, if a regular property owner attached to the water wastewater system does not pay their water account over time, the outstanding amounts are charged to their property tax bill. Consider this: 2 properties attached to the same system, but not treated with equal financial administration policy. Tenant water account delinquency leads to the remaining ratepayer property owners bearing the collection agency fees, write-offs, and associated administration costs in tens of thousands of dollars annually. This amount has a year-over-year accumulation factor which magnifies into hundreds of thousands of dollars and will continue to grow if action is not taken by this council to stop these ongoing financial losses. It must be pointed out that landlords are running private investment businesses. This provides income tax benefits of deducting rental property expenses such as insurance, maintenance, and property taxes, to name a few, from rental income. The landlord screens and approves the tenant application and collects rent dollars. Ratepayers do not participate in the administration or the revenue side of this business investment equation. However, when a delinquent tenant water account goes to collection or is written off, ratepayers are expected to fully participate in the cost side of this equation. Non-payment of a tenant water account is a business risk that must be borne by the landlord property owner and not the system ratepayers at large. This is not the first time this matter has been considered by council. Last year, the County of Norfolk administrative staff recommended the adoption of the provisions offered by the Municipal Act to stop the financial losses created by this issue, a recommendation that was turned away by a majority of this council. Newspaper accounts from that time described council deliberation comments that claimed it was not a landlord problem and felt it was unfair and unjust to put unpaid tenant charges on the backs of landlords. However, by default, it was appropriate to place the financial burden on the rest of the ratepayers. This council recently proposed to implement a large increase on residents and businesses using holding tanks. This group of ratepayers are currently active financial contributors to the system, rate issue aside, while the landlord property owners previously identified pay nothing for their investment business-generated tenant arrears and write-offs. The identified landlord property owners are part of the system and the community and cannot be exempt from financial responsibility for its support. This matter of unpaid water accounts is not isolated to only our county's water and wastewater system. Other jurisdictions, to name a few, Peterborough, Orillia, Cambridge, City of Hamilton, and the County of Brant, have addressed and implemented Sections 391 and 398 of the Municipal Act. These sections allow the county to charge outstanding accounts to the tax roll of the property receiving the service from the county. Adoption of these sections of the Municipal Act eliminate a clear, unfair, and costly subsidy. In conclusion, 100% cost recovery. You cannot ask one group to subsidize another. Norfolk County has never provided money to private businesses. These are all worthy and noble statements that have been made in this council chamber, yet they have not been applied to the identified landlord property owners, subsegment, who is clearly receiving unjustified preferential treatment at the cost of the general ratepayers. Other jurisdictions, most noteworthy, the County of Brant, have moved on this issue to end the accumulating losses to their water and wastewater systems. This council is not blazing a new path by using the Municipal Act for this purpose. Therefore, I call on this council to do the right thing. Make all property owners attached to the system equal with regards to financial administration policy. Show leadership and take the appropriate action today by adopting Sections 391 and 398 of the Municipal Act. This will bring an end to accumulating losses within our water and wastewater system. Your action needs to drive the earliest possible implementation date, but in any event, full implementation should be in place no later than January 1st, 2019. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you. I think that was of a general nature. Any questions or comments from councilors? Councilor Height.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the deputation, it sounds like you did quite a bit of research on this when it came to other municipalities. Were you able to find any that let tenants get away scot-free like Norfolk County?
Oh, I expect that there is some out there.
But for the most part, you found where it does go back to the taxpayer as per the Municipal Act requirements?
Quite a few. I didn't do every county and municipality.
Okay, thank you for that.
Anyone else? Councilor Black.
And through you to the deputation, wondering if through your investigation you discovered landlord properties that have individual hydro meters, and if the tenants don't pay, the landlord has to pay that. Did you, through your investigation, discover a landlord with multiple tenants with individual gas meters? Did you find that if they don't pay their gas bill, that goes to the landlord? And lastly, have you discovered what happens to unpaid taxes? Who pays that? So there's 3 questions for you.
I don't quite follow the unpaid taxes component. If you don't pay your taxes, to my understanding in this county, there is a tax sale.
The rest of the taxpayers pick it up.
As far as gas, gas is a for-profit organization. The stockholders of those organizations take the risk of unpaid bills. This water system is paid for by the ratepayers. We're not in a for-profit situation here. So it isn't anything to do with the number of meters or the number of tenants that you've got under 1 meter. It is a matter of whether or not it's paid or not. And the ratepayers shouldn't be carrying the load for somebody who is actually in business, making money, and needs the water system in order to even conduct the rental.
What about hydro? That's government operated, so you're suggesting that the landlords should be paying for all the hydro bills with individual meters and they're not paid.
That wasn't the point of my presentation. And I believe now that hydro is 51% owned by the public. Yeah, I know. Not another issue.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for your presentation. You may be seated. I need a mover and a seconder to receive this as information. Height? Geisens? All those in favor? Any other action or discussion? Councillor Height.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the deputy clerk, did you say the date was May 2016? When council came back, that's what I thought I heard you say.
Through the chair, it was May 16th, 2017.
So that's the soonest that we can fix this wrong?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Black.
Well, that's one councillor's opinion.
All right. We're going to leave this one and go on to the next deputation. From Mr. Robert Irvine, regarding Port Dover photo shoot road closure request. Mr. Irvine.
Thanks. Hello. My name is Robert Irvine. I'm a photographer. I've been a photographer since 1972. I live in Selkirk, Ontario for the last 13 years. My photography is wide and broad and covers a lot of subjects. Last year, my work made it to the Louvre in Paris, where I attended my exhibition. It also won a medal for what I was doing there. I'm attending the Louvre again this year. I also have a show in Caen in the south of France and also in Forbach in Germany. I've decided in early January that one of my photographs to go into the Louvre, which I had to explain to them, was I wanted to take Port Dover with me. And so I planned a shoot in Port Dover that's going to involve 16 volunteers, 4 assistants, and the shot will be done inside of 1 hour at twilight. We'll be rehearsing about 3 hours before that, but I'm requesting that the road, according to the documentation that you have, Harbour Street, a portion of Harbour Street be closed for the duration of this shoot for 1 hour at twilight. It's on a Sunday. But I also have a rain date, which is on the 25th, which is 1 week later. This presentation I'm going to do, and they haven't seen it yet, I submitted this a month ago to my Louvre representative, Benedict Lacat, and she gave me the go-ahead to submit this photograph. So all I'm looking for is a road closure on that section of road for 1 hour at twilight.
Are you finished?
Just wondering if this council does approve that, would Norfolk County be getting a copy of that?
A copy of the photograph?
Yes.
Of course.
Oh.
Yes.
Who else had their hand up? Mr. Luke?
Oh, conditions. Oh, boy. I guess if you do the shoot and you decide not to give us a photograph, we won't get one. Mr. Chair, through you, and Robert, thank you for your interest in promoting the county through your photography. It's amazing. The question I have, I read through your letter, if I can call it that. And you give your dates of March 18th, a week later rain date, and you'll be putting things together at 2 p.m., but you're really not asking that the Harbor Street be closed until it's towards twilight, correct?
Exactly, yes.
So during rehearsal, the street will still be open?
Yes.
1 hour. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Columbus.
Yes, Mr. Irvine, is the idea that you don't want any vehicles on the street when you're doing this shoot? Is that it?
Actually, I have, this was not submitted. I brought 10 copies of this, and this is a synopsis of the shoot, how many shots I'm going to take. This is one single photograph, but there's going to be about 14 photographs taken of exactly the same thing with different things happening in the shoot. We'll be putting vehicles on that street in places that they're not really supposed to be parked. On one side where they are parked, and on the other side where the railing is, the chain, I'm going to have cars parked there, specific vehicles that we've picked out to go there. And at the end of the shoot, then everything just, we just clean everything up.
Sounds like you've done a lot of planning already. Hopefully the weather will be good on March, 18th?
18th,
Yep.
Yes.
Councillor Brunton, please.
Mr. Chairman, through you to the gentleman, I have no problem with what you're, you've discussed it with Public Works or whoever to close the road, and like, it sounds like there's some planning needed if you want certain vehicles there and not there at different times during that hour, you know what I mean?
Well, during that, like I will have, there is 16 volunteers who are going to be distributed throughout. They'll all be coming down in vehicles. I'm going to use several of those vehicles to populate the shoot area where I'm going to be shooting.
So when you say an hour to shoot, it could be more hours involved to get people out and your vehicles in, is what I'm saying. And
oh,
again,
yeah. No, when I'm sending emails out constantly to give the volunteers updates. The last updates I will be sending them will be describing which vehicle are going to be where. So I figured if everybody's going to be down there, it's going to take a few minutes to get that set up.
Well, the reason I say that, like contrary to what my friend Mr. Wells thinks, I do go to Dover about twice a week to sit at the pier and walk on the pier, and
right.
It's not quite as good as Simcoe, but I still go. Anyways, I do like to go down there, and it's a beautiful spot, and I have no problem with what you like to do. It's just that I think you gotta plan it out with staff. Sounds like a little bigger undertaking than just 1 hour. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor Luke.
Thank you for letting me ask my second question. And certainly I've looked at the maps and read everything, but Mr. Chair, through to Mr. Urban, you are requesting, you say, a portion of Harbor Street. You basically want the road closed off on the west, well, I call it the west, southwest, at St. George all the way to Maine for the 1 hour, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Anyone else? Thank you for your presentation. I see no other questions. You may be seated.
Thank you.
I need someone to move and second that we receive this. Luke and Columbus, all those in favor? What action do you want to take? Mr. Wells.
Mr. Chair, I would put forth a motion that we grant this request unless there's some reason for it not, and the only one that would suggest that it would not be a good reason would be Public Works.
Ms. Robinson, any comments?
Through the chairman to council, I'm just reviewing the policy with respect to this, and this is not something that actually requires council approval, and if it had gone through the process, it would have been approved by staff in accordance with our policy. So I don't feel that you need to do a motion. We can send it through the appropriate procedures that we have, and we won't need to have that.
Okay. There you go. On this subject, I recall some years ago, we had a road closure near Villanova, one concession south of Villanova. They wanted to do a commercial, I think it was for Lexus, the car company. They closed off those two roads for an entire day. They brought in water trucks to make the roads wet. They brought in lighting to enhance the lighting. They brought in actors and directors, and they had the police block. It was a mega production. But the Villanova intersection was seen worldwide on a Lexus commercial. It had just the proper terrain and the little red barn in the background, blah, blah, blah. So they must have sent people all over the world to scour for the proper location, and they chose that intersection. They were there all day with hundreds of people, and I think it was on the commercial for 15 seconds. Mr. Wells.
Well, Mr. Chair, I can certainly understand why the gentleman would go all over the world and not find a nicer spot than Port Dover.
Well, they'd already chosen Villanova's. Port Dover is second. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. We now move on to 4 consent items. One is dealing with a contract of reconstruction work on Bell Street in Delhi. Another is a contract for reconstruction on 2nd Ave and Upper Wellington in Simcoe. Another deals with extension of risk management official and inspector consulting services. And another one is the forest management plan and the forest operations plan. Okay, these are 4 consent items.